On a cold December evening in 2009, the grand ballroom of Dubai's Jumeirah Beach Hotel glittered like a jewel against the city's skyline. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over nearly 300 guests, their silk saris and embroidered. Shahwanais creating a tapestry of celebration that spoke of tradition, prosperity and hope. At the center of this magnificent display stood Rania Kamal, 23 years old and breathtaking in her heavily embroidered bridal lehenga, her mehendi-painted hands folded gracefully as families from both sides offered their blessings. In T, the glittering heart of Dubai, where dreams rise from desert sand and ambition knows no bounds, this young woman's fairy tale was about to reveal itself as something far more sinister. What appeared to be a perfect union between two respected families would ultimately end in a scandal so devastating that it would destroy lives, shatter reputations, and drive a man to his grave. Rania had always been a dreamer, with the steel determination to make those dreams reality. Born and raised in Dubai to middle-class Pakistani expatriate parents, she had transformed her natural artistic talent into a thriving bridal makeup business. Working from her modest but meticulously organized apartment in Karama, she had built her reputation one transformed bride at a time. Her vision extended far beyond individual clients. She dreamed of opening a chain of bridal studios across the Gulf, expanding to Abu Dhabi, Doha, perhaps even internationally. Every morning brought WhatsApp messages from potential brides, testimony to a business built on skill, creativity, and an unwavering belief that every woman deserved to feel beautiful on her most important day. It was through Dubai's tight-knit, Pakistani expatriate community that Samiuddin Kamal first heard whispers about this talented young woman. At 53, Samiuddin commanded respect wherever he appeared. His 25 years as a Roads and Transport Authority official had earned him a reputation for integrity and careful planning, evidenced by the elegant villa he owned in Jumeirah, purchased during Dubai's boom years when vision and timing could transform lives overnight. Every Friday, his dignified presence at Al Noor Mosque in Deira drew respectful greetings from men who valued his wisdom and admired his dedication to his family. Samiuddin had raised his son Nabeel alone since his wife's death 8 years earlier, and the community watched with sympathy as this devoted father poured his entire existence into ensuring his son's future security. At 26, Nabeel struck those who met him as pleasantly quiet, his gentle features and respectful manner suggesting excellent upbringing. When friends at the mosque began suggesting it was time for the young man to marry, Samiuddin embarked on a careful search for the perfect daughter-in-law. The marriage proposal meeting unfolded in the elegant majlis of the Kamal family home, where Persian carpets covered marble floors and Arabic calligraphy adorned the walls in gold leaf. Rania's parents, genuinely impressed by the understated luxury and warm hospitality, felt fortune had smiled upon their ambitious daughter. When Nabeel appeared to serve tea with cardamom and fresh dates, his quiet demeanor and boyish charm reinforced their positive impression. Samiuddin spoke of his son with obvious affection, describing him as calm and gentle, someone who would provide any wife with a peaceful, stable life. When questions arose about Nabeel's work, Samiuddin smoothly explained that his son helped manage their property investments, learning the family business gradually under careful guidance. The young man himself contributed little to the conversation, but everyone attributed this to appropriate respect for his elders and natural shyness around his potential bride. The wedding ceremony itself unfolded with traditional beauty. During the nikah, Nabeel sat beside the imam, following his father's whispered prompts about when to speak and what to say. His nervousness seemed typical for any groom, though Rania noticed something almost childlike in his excitement about the elaborate wedding cake. He clapped his hands with genuine delight, bouncing slightly as he marveled at its size and decoration. When Samiuddin helped guide both their hands on the knife for the ceremonial cutting, there was something oddly parental about the gesture that lingered in Rania's memory. The wedding night shattered her romantic expectations entirely. Instead of the intimate conversation she had nervously anticipated, Nabeel immediately gravitated toward the television, searching channels until he found cartoons. He settled on the bed fully clothed, becoming completely absorbed in an animated movie. When she gently attempted to discuss their future together, he looked at her with innocent confusion and asked if she enjoyed cartoons, mentioning he had many more at home. The devastating reality emerged gradually over the following weeks. Nabeel's daily routine resembled that of a much younger person, waking late, watching cartoons during breakfast, spending hours with building blocks and toy cars, requiring afternoon naps. When Rania attempted adult conversations about work, household management, or their relationship, he responded with the simple directness of someone whose emotional development had stopped years earlier. The most chilling revelation came when she asked him directly about marriage and what it meant. His response revealed the calculated deception that had trapped her. He understood marriage as simply meaning she lived there now to help take care of him, exactly as his father had explained. After 3 weeks of growing horror, Rania insisted on medical consultation. Dr. Sarah Al-Mahmoud's evaluation at Healthcare City confirmed her worst fears. Nabeel had moderate intellectual disability, with cognitive and emotional development frozen around age 8. This condition had existed since birth and would never change. The confrontation with Samiuddin that followed occurred in the same beautiful majlis where their families had first met with such hope. His defensive explanations revealed the full scope of their deception. They had deliberately misrepresented Nabeel's condition, hoping Rania would learn to love him despite his limitations and serve as his lifelong caregiver. At 23, with dreams of building her own business empire, Rania found herself imprisoned in a marriage that was really an unpaid caregiving position. When she mentioned divorce, Samiuddin's response was swift and merciless. Such action would bring devastating shame to both families. He urged her to give the situation time to find happiness within the circumstances they had created. Sitting in that opulent room, surrounded by the symbols of success and respectability, Rania realized her fairy tale had become a beautifully decorated prison. What she couldn't foresee was that her story of deception and entrapment was only beginning, and that the choices born from her desperation would ultimately destroy far more than just her own dreams. The months following Rania's devastating discovery transformed the elegant Jumeirah villa into a beautifully appointed prison. Each morning brought the same suffocating routine, helping Nabeel dress, cutting his food, managing his medications, and listening to his excited chatter about cartoon characters as if they were real people. The modern kitchen, with its granite countertops, became her command center for constant vigilance, keeping her husband safe while her own dreams withered away. Her makeup business operated from a converted spare bedroom that felt more like a lifeline than a workspace. When brides arrived for appointments, Rania would perform the role of successful entrepreneur, even as clients began noticing changes. The way her smile never reached her eyes, how her hands trembled applying delicate eyeliner, moments when she'd stare into the distance, seeing something far beyond the mirror's reflection. Nabeel inhabited his innocent world with the pure joy of eternal childhood. His days unfolded in predictable patterns, coloring books, building blocks, and his treasured smartphone used exclusively as a camera to document everything that caught his interest. He wandered through villa and garden, capturing random moments, butterflies, shadows, people in unguarded instances, with genuine enthusiasm. His sweet gestures became both comfort and torment for Rania. He'd appear with wilted flowers from the garden, beaming with pride, unable to understand why tears would spring to her eyes. Social isolation proved almost as devastating as the marriage itself. Other wives in Dubai's Pakistani community maintained polite distance, their conversations carefully superficial. Invitations to couples events became exercises in creative excuse-making. Rania couldn't bear sitting through dinner parties where women discussed their husbands' careers, travel plans, romantic gestures. Her business appointments became her only source of adult conversation. Samiuddin's retirement left him with considerable time to notice Rania's obvious decline. He observed her weight loss, dark circles under expertly applied makeup, the way she moved through the house like someone sleepwalking through life. His initial gestures were appropriately concerned, bringing favorite sweets from the souk, asking about business, offering help with Nabeel's demanding care. The breakthrough came after Nabeel's rare meltdown over a broken toy left Rania exhausted and sobbing in the kitchen. Samiuddin found her there, witnessing her complete breakdown without judgment. "I see how hard this is for you," he said quietly, his voice carrying understanding that penetrated years of pretense. "You're carrying a burden no one your age should bear." That conversation opened floodgates sealed for months. Rania talked about abandoned dreams, impossible business plans, crushing loneliness of living with someone who could never know her. Samiuddin listened with attention. She hadn't experienced since marriage, sharing his own loneliness since his wife's death, fears about Nabeel's future, guilt over their deception. These late-evening conversations became anticipated routine. Over tea in the quiet kitchen, they discussed current events, personal philosophies, topics Nabeel could never engage with. Samiuddin revealed intelligence, progressive views about women's rights and ambitions. For Rania, these moments became precious islands of connection in an ocean of isolation. The shift from concern to danger happened gradually. Comfort hugs lasted longer than necessary. During conversations, they sat closer on the kitchen banquette, knees occasionally touching. Samiuddin's hand would rest on her shoulder when she became emotional, his touch lingering with unspoken intention. The evening that changed everything began with a violent thunderstorm, knocking out neighborhood power. Nabeel, frightened by lightning, fell asleep early after hours of Rania's reassurance, leaving them alone in candle-lit darkness. Their conversation turned to Rania's deepest regrets: abandoned international expansion, creative projects, the simple dream of being truly known and valued. When Samiuddin wiped away her tears, his touch sparked something building for weeks. The desperate kiss that followed was born from months of emotional starvation and mutual loneliness. They broke apart immediately, shocked by intensity, by how natural it felt, despite knowing how wrong it was. 2 weeks of careful distance followed, speaking only when necessary, avoiding eye contact, pretending the connection never happened. But memory lingered like forbidden promise, coloring every interaction with unspoken possibility. The second incident occurred during another power outage, as if darkness was required for acknowledging what daylight made impossible to justify. This time, when eyes met across the candlelit kitchen, neither pulled away. The kiss was longer, deeper, accompanied by whispered confessions about suppressed loneliness and desire. Rania's internal monologue echoed with dangerous justification. "This is wrong, but it's the only time I feel alive." In Samiuddin's arms, she wasn't caregiver or victim. She was simply a woman being desired by someone who saw her true self. Standing in that darkened kitchen, both understanding they'd crossed an uncrossable line, neither could foresee how this stolen moment would ultimately destroy not just their lives, but the innocent man sleeping peacefully above them. The affair that began in desperate loneliness would end in devastating exposure, transforming their secret sanctuary into the very weapon that would tear their family apart forever. What began as stolen moments in a darkened kitchen evolved into an elaborate double life that consumed both Rania and Samiuddin with its intoxicating blend of passion and danger. Their affair settled into carefully orchestrated patterns that seemed to prove they could maintain their secret indefinitely. Afternoon encounters became routine during Nabeel's predictable nap time, when the villa fell into its daily quiet hour between lunch and evening prayers. These stolen intimacies took place in Rania's bedroom, the very space where she had once cried herself to sleep over her trapped circumstances, now transformed into a sanctuary of forbidden desire. Late-night visits followed a different rhythm entirely. So after ensuring Nabeel was deeply asleep, Samiuddin would slip quietly down the marble hallway to Rania's room, where they would spend hours talking, touching, and building an emotional connection that went far beyond physical attraction. They developed elaborate cover stories for their increased time together. Samiuddin was teaching Rania about property management. They were planning home improvements. He was helping her understand family finances. Their careful timing and practiced deception made them increasingly confident that their secret was safe. Both found ways to justify what they knew was morally wrong. Samiuddin convinced himself that his son could never be a real husband to any woman, that Nabeel's condition made their marriage a legal fiction rather than a genuine union. "You deserve to be loved by someone who can actually love you back," he would whisper to Rania during their intimate moments. "What we have isn't betrayal. It's what should have been from the beginning." Rania's internal reasoning was equally self-serving but no less sincere. She told herself this wasn't betrayal but survival, that she had been forced into an impossible situation and deserved whatever happiness she could find. "I'm not hurting anyone," she would repeat like a mantra. "Nabeel doesn't understand what marriage means anyway." Their relationship deepened beyond physical attraction into genuine emotional attachment, creating a private world where they could be the people their circumstances had prevented them from becoming. Meanwhile, Nabeel continued his innocent documentation of daily life, his smartphone camera capturing everything that caught his interest. His photo albums filled with hundreds of random images, breakfast plates, television screens showing his favorite cartoons, family members in various states of activity and rest. To him, every moment was worth preserving, every scene equally fascinating. His parents had long ago dismissed this habit as harmless entertainment, never thinking to examine what their intellectually disabled son was actually recording. As months passed, the affair's intensity made Rania and Samiuddin increasingly careless. There were close calls that should have served as warnings. Nabeel almost walking in during an afternoon encounter, only stopped by Rania's quick thinking in claiming she was resting with a headache. A neighbor mentioned noticing Samiuddin spending unusual amounts of time at home, commenting that retirement was certainly agreeing with him. Rania's closest friend from her makeup business began asking pointed questions about her improved mood and obvious weight gain, wondering if there might be happy news to share. Rather than increasing their caution, these near misses only seemed to fuel their confidence. They began planning secret outings to remote areas of Dubai, drives along the coast toward Fujairah, shopping trips to malls in distant Emirates where they wouldn't encounter anyone from their social circle. These expeditions were disguised as family errands, with Samiuddin claiming he was helping Rania source materials for her business or showing her properties he was considering for investment. During these private moments, their conversations turned increasingly toward an impossible future. Samiuddin spoke in hypotheticals about what their life could be like together, how they could travel, the business expansion he could fund for her. Rania found herself torn between guilt over these fantasies and genuine feelings that had grown, stronger than she ever expected. What had begun as desperate escape from loneliness was becoming something she couldn't imagine living without. Nabeel's innocent photography continued capturing everything around him, his growing collection now, inadvertently documenting evidence that would destroy multiple lives. His albums contained images of Samiuddin leaving Rania's room in the early morning hours, intimate conversations between the two adults who thought themselves unobserved, private moments that revealed the true nature of their relationship to anyone who understood what they were seeing. But Nabeel processed these images the same way he processed everything else, as interesting patterns and familiar faces, without deeper meaning. The anniversary celebration that would expose everything began as Samiuddin's romantic gesture disguised as family obligation. After 3 years of their secret relationship, he announced plans for an elaborate 10th wedding anniversary party at their villa, complete with decorations, catered dinner, and entertainment for 35 close family members flying in from across the region. Rania felt deeply uncomfortable with the intimate family attention this would bring, knowing how many questions and conversations she would need to navigate, but she couldn't object without raising suspicions. Samiuddin's most dangerous decision was incorporating Nabeel's photography into the celebration. He planned to create a family slideshow using their large-screen television, showcasing a decade of memories that would demonstrate what a happy, successful marriage looked like to their gathered relatives. The idea of using Nabeel's extensive photo collection seemed perfect. Who better to document family life than the sweet, innocent son who loved taking pictures? Nabeel was thrilled to contribute his photographs to the celebration, helping his father transfer hundreds of images from his phone to the computer. The process took several evenings, with Nabeel explaining each picture's significance in his simple, enthusiastic way. Neither Samiuddin nor Rania carefully reviewed the complete collection, trusting that Nabeel's childlike perspective would have captured only innocent family moments. The technical setup seemed straightforward: a laptop connected to their large television, a carefully curated slideshow that would play during dinner, showcasing 10 years of what appeared to be marital happiness and family harmony. What they didn't realize was that Nabeel's innocent documentation had captured the truth of their secret world in devastating detail, creating an accidental archive of evidence that would soon be displayed before every person whose opinion mattered, most to their family's reputation. As the anniversary date approached, neither Rania nor Samiuddin could have imagined that their most carefully planned celebration would become the instrument of their complete destruction, or that the innocent young man whose disability had brought them together would unknowingly provide the evidence that would tear their secret world apart forever. The evening of December 15, 2019, began with the kind of celebration that Dubai's expatriate community treasured most, an intimate gathering that honored tradition while showcasing prosperity. Samiuddin's spacious villa in Jumeirah had been transformed into a vision of elegance, with golden marigolds and roses adorning every surface, traditional Arabic music playing softly through hidden speakers, and the warm glow of string lights creating an atmosphere of joy and abundance. 35 of their closest family members had traveled from across the region to celebrate what appeared to be a perfect marriage, reaching its 10-year milestone. Rania moved through the evening like an actress playing the role of her lifetime, stunning in a gold-embroidered lehenga that caught the light with every graceful step. She received embraces and compliments from Samiuddin's brothers and their wives, who had flown in from Riyadh, her own parents and siblings beaming with pride at their daughter's apparent happiness, and Nabeel's maternal aunts who spoke fondly of the sweet boy they had watched grow into a devoted husband. The catered dinner spread across the main majlis, and garden created the perfect backdrop for photographs and conversations that would normally become treasured family memories. Nabeel himself was the picture of excitement, practically bouncing in his new navy sherwani as he moved between groups of relatives, his innocent joy infectious to everyone around him. "Big party at home," he kept announcing to anyone who would listen, clapping his hands together with the pure delight of someone for whom such celebrations were magical experiences beyond ordinary comprehension. After dinner, as tradition demanded, the family gathered in the main living room for the special presentation Samiuddin had prepared. The large television screen dominated one wall, connected to his laptop, which contained what he had carefully curated as 10 years of memories. A slideshow meant to showcase the happiness and harmony of Nabeel and Rania's marriage. The 35 guests arranged themselves on sofas and chairs, creating an intimate circle that made everyone feel like witnesses to something special and personal. Nabeel could barely contain his excitement as the presentation began. My pictures, he called out, clapping enthusiastically as his father dimmed the lights and pressed play. The slideshow opened beautifully with wedding photographs that drew admiring comments from the gathered relatives, followed by images of family gatherings, holiday celebrations, and everyday moments that painted a picture of domestic bliss spanning an entire decade. Rania and Samiuddin exchanged what they hoped were subtle glances across the crowded room, both fighting to maintain composure while their hearts raced with the tension of their dangerous performance. Every image that appeared on screen felt like a potential threat, though they had convinced themselves that Nabeel's innocent perspective would have captured only appropriate family moments. The catastrophe began without warning. 3 years into the slideshow's chronological journey, an image flashed onto the screen that made time seem to freeze. There, in stark clarity, was Samiuddin, shirtless, clearly captured in the early morning hours, exiting what was unmistakably Rania's bedroom. The next slide showed Rania herself in a disheveled robe, her hair messy, caught in the reflection of her bedroom mirror as she hastily tried to fix her appearance. The third image was perhaps most damning of all, both of them in intimate conversation in the kitchen, sitting far too close together, their body language speaking of a relationship that went far beyond appropriate family interaction. The initial reaction was confusion rather than immediate understanding. In the dim lighting of the living room, some guests squinted at the screen, uncertain about what they were seeing. But recognition dawned quickly among those sitting closest to the television. The collective gasp that followed seemed to suck all oxygen from the elegantly decorated space. 35 pairs of eyes turned from the screen to stare at Rania and Samiuddin, watching in real time as the color drained from Rania's face, and Samiuddin stood frozen, unable to speak or move. In that moment, years of careful deception crumbled into devastating truth, witnessed by every person whose opinion mattered most to their family's reputation. Nabeel, completely oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding around him, continued clapping, with delight. "That's my Baba and my Rania," he announced proudly, his innocent joy creating a grotesque contrast to the horror spreading through the room. The explosion of reaction was immediate and devastating. Close family members fumbled for their phones, some to record the evidence, others to call absent relatives who needed to know immediately what they had witnessed. Rania's mother collapsed backward into her chair, her face pale with shock as her husband frantically tried to revive her. Brothers and male cousins began shouting accusations across the confined space, their voices echoing off marble walls in a chaos of anger, disbelief, and shame. Children who had been playing quietly in corners began crying from the sudden adult chaos they couldn't understand. Wives whispered furiously to each other in Urdu, Arabic, and English, trying to process what they had seen, while simultaneously calculating how this scandal would affect their own family's standing in the community. Samiuddin's response was perhaps the most damning of all. Without a word of explanation or denial, he simply walked toward the front door of his own home. His silence spoke louder than any confession could have, leaving 35 witnesses to draw their own conclusions about what they had seen. As he reached for his car keys, Rania finally found her voice, attempting to speak to the devastated gathering of family members who had once respected and loved her. But what could she possibly say? How could she explain 3 years of deception to people who had traveled across continents to celebrate what they believed was a blessed marriage? Her words came out in broken fragments, apologies, denials, desperate attempts at justification. But the evidence was literally still glowing on the television screen behind her. Nabeel, increasingly distressed by the shouting and chaos in his familiar, comfortable home, began crying with the heartbroken confusion of someone whose safe world had suddenly become frightening and hostile. His tears only added to the tragedy of the moment, reminding everyone present that the most innocent person in the room was also the one who would suffer most from the consequences of actions he could never understand. As Samiuddin's car pulled out of the driveway and disappeared into the Dubai night, the intimate family gathering dissolved into complete devastation. Videos of the slideshow were already being shared through WhatsApp groups, spreading the evidence to family members across 3 countries within minutes. The beautiful celebration that was meant to honor 10 years of marriage had instead become the funeral for everything the Kamal family had built over generations. Rania stood alone in her gold-embroidered lehenga, surrounded by the wreckage of relationships that could never be repaired, facing 35 people whose trust she had obliterated in the space of 3 photographs. The secret world she and Samiuddin had built so carefully had been destroyed by the innocent documentation of the very person they thought they were protecting. After fleeing his own home in devastating silence, Samiuddin drove through Dubai's glittering streets with no destination in mind, his hands gripping the steering wheel as the weight of what had just occurred settled over him like a suffocating shroud. The city he had called home for decades now felt alien and hostile. Every familiar landmark, a reminder of the reputation he had spent a lifetime building and destroyed in a matter of minutes. Eventually, his car found its way to a quiet stretch near Dubai Creek, where the orange glow of street lamps reflected off the dark water, and the distant hum of traffic provided a melancholy soundtrack to his final hours. Sitting in his car overlooking the water that had witnessed Dubai's transformation from humble fishing village to global metropolis, Samiuddin began typing what would become his final message to the world. His fingers moved slowly across his phone's screen, each word carefully chosen as he attempted to explain the inexplicable and find meaning in the wreckage of his choices. The sleeping pills he had been saving since his wife's cancer battle years earlier were dissolved methodically into his thermos of tea, the bitter taste masked by extra sugar as he prepared for the only solution that seemed to offer escape from the unbearable shame that consumed him. His suicide note, discovered later on his phone, revealed the depth of his self-awareness and regret. My son never understood what love was, and I used that innocent ignorance to destroy him. The shame of what I have done is unbearable. I have dishonored my family, my late wife's memory, and an innocent woman who deserved so much better than the trap we created for her. I cannot face tomorrow knowing what I have become. Please care for Nabeel. He is pure and innocent in all. So of this tragedy, may Allah forgive us all for the pain we have caused. A morning jogger discovered his body the following day, peaceful in death under the gentle glow of the street lamp that had illuminated his final hours. The Dubai police investigation was swift and respectful, treating the case as a clear suicide with no suspicious circumstances. Media coverage remained minimal out of deference to the family's privacy, though whispers spread quickly through the expatriate community's interconnected networks. No criminal charges were filed against Rania, as adultery laws were complex, and the tragic circumstances surrounding Samiuddin's death created sympathy even among those who condemned her actions. However, the court of public opinion proved far more merciless than any legal system could have been. Rania's carefully built makeup business collapsed within days as clients cancelled appointments and refused to answer her calls. The woman who had once transformed brides into visions of beauty found herself toxic to the very community that had once celebrated her talents. After briefly returning to her parents' home, where the shame and disappointment were too heavy to bear, she quietly disappeared from Dubai within months. The last confirmed sighting placed her boarding a flight to Toronto, seeking the anonymity that only a complete fresh start in a new country could provide. Nabeel's fate proved perhaps the most heartbreaking of all. With his father dead and his wife gone, the gentle young man who had never understood the adult complexities swirling around him was placed in a specialized care facility in Sharjah. Care workers reported that he asked daily when Baba and Rania would be coming back, his innocent mind unable to process the permanence of their absence. He spent his days drawing pictures of the three of them together, smiling faces in crayon that depicted the loving family he believed they had been. The ripple effects extended far beyond the immediate family. Both the Kamal and Rania's family networks scattered globally, with relatives relocating to avoid the lingering shame and social ostracism that followed the scandal. The Kamal family property was sold quickly and quietly, erasing their name from Dubai's social circles as thoroughly as if they had never existed. Rania's siblings found themselves unwelcome in social groups they had belonged to for years, guilt by association, making their own marriages and friendships casualties of the scandal. The 7-second video clip that captured the slideshow revelation never made it to public social media platforms, but it circulated endlessly through private WhatsApp groups across the Gulf region. Known simply as the anniversary that killed a father, it became a cautionary tale whispered in community gatherings and shared as a warning about the dangers of deception and the fragility of family honor. The story's legacy extended beyond mere gossip, forcing difficult conversations within expatriate communities about arranged marriages, family obligations, and the support systems available for families dealing with intellectual disabilities. Some saw Rania as a victim of circumstance, trapped by cultural expectations and family deception. Others viewed her as a destroyer of innocent lives who could have chosen divorce over adultery. Samiuddin was simultaneously condemned as a manipulator and pitied as a desperate father who made tragic choices in impossible circumstances. The empty villa in Jumeirah stood as a monument to dreams destroyed and lives shattered. Its "for sale" sign in both Arabic and English attracted few serious buyers, as the property's reputation preceded any viewing. The garden where Nabeel had once picked wilted flowers for Rania grew wild and overgrown, nature reclaiming what human ambition had built and human weakness had destroyed. In the end, 3 lives had been utterly destroyed by a secret affair that lasted less than 3 years. A respected man chose death over disgrace. A young woman abandoned everything she had built to start over in anonymity, An innocent man lost the only family he had ever known, left to spend his remaining years asking questions that would never be answered. The tragedy raised uncomfortable questions about responsibility and victimhood in a culture where family honor often trumped individual happiness. Who bore the greatest guilt? The father who deceived a bride, the woman who chose adultery over divorce, or a society that made honest solutions impossible? Perhaps the only clear truth was that Nabeel, the most vulnerable person in this triangle of deception, paid the highest price for choices he never made and circumstances he never understood. The anniversary that killed a father became more than just a scandal. It became a stark reminder that secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, eventually demand payment in full. The glittering facade of success and respectability that Dubai's expatriate communities often worked so hard to maintain proved as fragile as the desert sand beneath the city's towering ambitions. In seeking to protect family honor through deception, the Kamal family had ultimately destroyed it entirely, leaving behind only questions, regret, and the haunting image of an empty villa where love and lies had once coexisted in the shadows.